Hey everyone, welcome to the First Ones to Die BookCast. We're back at it again. This is our third book. Is it BookCast? Yeah, it's called BookCast.
Yeah, I think we just called it BookCast.
Right.
I think we tried to come up with a different name, but we did not.
We did not. So BookCast it is. This is our third BookCast ever. So you're in the inaugural stages of our BookCast, which we appreciate you for joining us along for the ride. So Alex, first of all, what book are we reviewing today?
The Book of Cold Cases. Or I shouldn't put that right in front of my mouth. The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James, which I think is a badass name for one thing. St. James. That's pretty cool.
It is. That is a good name. Simone St. James. That almost sounds like a jazz singer.
Simone. Yeah, it does. I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I was like, that's like an old school name that like it's a boss name.
It is. Anyway. Well, the Book of Cold Cases, this is our book of the month pick, by the way, for I think this was April's book. Or March's. It was March's book, I think.
No, this is April's. No, you're right. It is March's. I have April's book. I have not. I didn't feel like their selection in April was the best, so I kind of just selected whatever.
Fair.
We'll probably review May's book later.
Right. And TBD on what the selections will be for May. But for now, we're reviewing March pick, The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. In 1977, Clear Lake, Oregon, was shaken by the Lady Killer murders. Two men, seemingly random, were murdered with the same gun. Strange notes left behind. Beth Greer was the perfect suspect, a rich, eccentric 23-year-old woman seen fleeing from one of the crimes. But she was acquitted, and she retreated to the isolation of her mansion. That's the first part of the Goodreads description. And it turns into a suspenseful, somewhat spooky thriller. And we're going to discuss it because we read this book. So, Alex, give me some of your initial thoughts on the Book of Cold Cases.
Sorry, my mic got a little weird there. Well, actually, even though there is a tagline in here that says some crimes come back to haunt you, I didn't anticipate such a little spooky element there, a little like a supernatural vibe. Yeah, I wasn't anticipating that, so I was like, I was happily surprised by that, because I thought this was going to be kind of a cold case book, where they kind of find out the Scooby-Doo styling, but without the supernatural. But then it really turned into Scooby-Doo styling with the supernatural. Mm-hmm. But again, all the monsters are human in the end.
Right.
Life lesson. But I did enjoy the book more than I anticipated. I think it's because of that little supernatural surprise. I'm never a fan of murder mysteries that kind of involve a small town, because I just feel like there's just something about small town murders I'm not like so shocked by, or like surprised when the people don't get arrested, or they're like, oh yeah, nothing, no evidence piles up, even though everybody's like, there's only 20 of us in this town. Right. We all directly saw the one, the 19th person coming out of the burning building. Like, it's there. So that part kind of threw me off a little bit. I'm trying not to give away too many spoilers right now. But no, it drew me in. It held me pretty well, and it's a quick read. It's not heavy, and it's not like really emotional like they try to do with like murder mystery books. Sometimes they try to really have you like connect far too much with the victim and get you kind of like an emotionally compromised state.
Or too descriptive.
Right.
About elements that don't
like the soles of the shoe. Yeah, the soles of the shoe. Yeah, I don't need to know what the soles of the shoes, or that the victim had, soup that day. Although I do love soup.
Soup is good.
It is so good. Soup makes just everything better. So that this book definitely didn't do that. Simone St. James was descriptive where she needed to be, and she didn't seem to play heavily on the emotions too much. Of course, because it's a murder mystery, they're gonna do that in general. But she gave some interesting facts in here as well when it came to the murder mystery, which I appreciate. And again, one thing I love to point out, I did not find any spelling errors or misprints.
That's always a good thing. That's always a good sign.
Right? Yeah, because that'll definitely distract me. So, shout out to her editor.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good job. I'll try to find it at one point. We can shout them out, the editor.
Wow.
Um,
I'll Google it. All right. What about you? What did you think of the book?
for me, I enjoyed the book. So I've read one other Simone St. James book, and it was for another book club. It was 2 years ago, or 2020. It was the Sundown Motel, and it was another book of the month book.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, and funny enough, they had very similar elements. No spoilers about the Sundown Motel, but they were both kind of plot wise and thematically, and just like conceptually very similar. With two women, you have kind of time jumps, dual perspectives, kind of, and an element of supernatural to go with the kind of thriller element as well. And I really liked the Sundown Motel. I really recommend it if anyone wants to read anything else by Simone St. James. I really recommend the Sundown Motel. I'll have to dive into her other books because from these two books, I really enjoyed them. But for the Book of Cold Cases, I think going into it, I had definitely had that. I had an expectation that this was going to be completely different from the Sundown Motel, but it wasn't. So I was kind of in a way comparing the two. And
which can get troublesome when you're trying to read a book if you keep thinking about
right,
the other book just will like, oh, she did it in this way. I wonder if the end route is going to be the same then.
right. And I think I did like the Sundown Motel a tad bit better. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. But for this one, I think you definitely had a relatable main character, and then you have this woman who's very mysterious. The story is told in third person so that you don't know exactly what's going on in her mind, which I really liked. So you're getting the perspective of what's the main character's name? Oh my gosh.
Hold on.
We're learning our perspective.
Beth Greer.
No,
no way. Shay Collins.
Yes, Shay. You have the perspective of Shay.
So I have the on my computer. If you guys see my eyes moving, I literally have the list of characters and what they did, because I'm not very good with names.
Same.
And I tried my best not to screw up people's names, and but anyway, go on. Yes, you're right. Shay Collins.
Yes, you have Shay, and we're very much, I think she's very much the eyes and ears of the audience, to kind of enhance the mysteriousness of Beth Greer, which I thought was really effective. So yeah, overall I enjoyed it, but just not as much as the Sundown Motel.
That's fair. Maybe I'll have to give that book a look into then.
I enjoyed it. It's a good one.
Spoilers time.
Spoilers. Let's get into it.
All right, spoilers. I'm gonna create a little transition thing. Spoilers.
Oh yeah, a little spoiler song transition music.
Well, I can't do music.
Okay.
How good are you at singing? Can we make you sing? I can have Jerome make the music.
Spoiler. No, I'm not gonna.
I mean, that's not bad. I think we're gonna use that from now on. We'll work on that. So, main character Shay Collins. She's a true crime blogger, yes, which I actually really ended up liking a lot, because not only is it very modern, very personable, very you could definitely see, well, at least I could definitely see myself doing a true blogging thing. I like how they made it that she wasn't using the blog, the true crime blog, as some weird sick fans fixation. I see a lot of true crime bloggers in real life go far too go too far and behave horribly and share these details that are awful. She seems to be doing it as a therapeutic way to help her with a past trauma. It's kind of learning new escape routes and how to avoid them. If you've already been in something so traumatic, you're learning new ways to escape it. And I liked how she kept that pace, that pace for that character, where she wasn't doing it as a weird sick fixation. It was more of a like, this is therapeutic for me. It doesn't matter if I get a bunch of views. It doesn't matter if people are clicking or anything. I'm
Right.
doing it because this is something that seems to help me function, which I really did like.
Yeah. And it seemed like it made sense for her because it was self-funded. She said that she's able to get some ads from it and some revenue from it, not a lot, but then she just puts that revenue back into the blog, so that it funds itself, and she's not taking any of her own resources from it,
Yeah.
but she's still able to work on it. And it's that mentality of like, if it gets big, then it gets big, but I'm just doing this because I love it right now.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you're right. And it's small revenue. She didn't go through the whole book being like, I just need that one to blow up, then I can make a living off of this, or blah blah blah. She was like, it's definitely just something for me.
Mhm.
What did you think of the other? Would she be considered the other main character or protagonist, Beth Greer?
Um, I would say that she is. If this were a movie, she'd probably be the supporting character, but the book is kind of based around her. So she's kind of like and she's made to seem like the antagonist, but not really. I don't think.
I think the way Simone lines her up so evenly at times with Shay, I think it's hard to not call her a main character, or at least not call her like the other side of the coin, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think she does. You're right. If this was a movie style, she would definitely be a supporting character, probably coming out at the last like 30 minutes. But for the book, she lines Beth up so much because it is they kind of go between their two like damaged childhoods and like the tragedies that really shape them to the individuals they have to become. And it's also very interesting. And I did like how Simone St. James did this. She shows what it's like to have the both trauma responses. One is seclusion, isolation, and being like forcing yourself to become an introvert and be like, I don't want anybody around me. Well, Shay became the extrovert. She's like, I'm putting everything out there. Everybody can see what I'm thinking about with the blog. And like, she's out having a normal functioning life. She is quote unquote moving forward with her life, but at the same time, you can see how much it's affected her because she needs to have this like presence always when it comes to the blog. So I do like how she used both styles of trauma response in a way to show what can happen when things go bad and the two different roads that you can almost take.
Right. That's a good point that I didn't think about, because they are polar opposites in the way that they dealt with what happened to them. In I'll ask this question later, because it'll go into it'll kind of divert from talking about the talking about the book itself. One of the things that I was thinking about when I was reading the book is when Shay kind of makes questionable decisions, like the fact that she decides to meet up with this woman that she thinks is a serial killer, one-on-one alone.
You mean by a creepy lake and in an almost deserted mansion? Yeah, I can see how you'd question her mentality or
right.
her, yeah.
She tells herself, or she tells us at least, like, I know I shouldn't be doing this. I know this is not smart, but I just have to. That's a trope.
Oh,
what were we gonna say?
I was just talking about earlier today. I'll tell more on the actual podcast, more exciting news about my life. But I learned I have self-preservation. Remember, I have learned now when I see something is bad for me, I know to walk away from it. This woman did not do that. No self-preservation.
Nope.
I learned that word this week. But yeah, you're right. She was fully aware of like, this is a bad idea. And she's like, but it's also a once in a lifetime opportunity. And like I can get that, but at the same time, you're still meeting a murderer who's been acquitted and is up in isolation too. So like you go in there.
And is an alcoholic.
That's true. And like you're probably gonna accept food and drink from her. God knows if she's gonna put anything in it. Like you're also alone in like a mansion, so you can get lost probably easily.
Yeah. And
right.
that's kind of, and I didn't realize it until I read that. I'm like, I feel like I read this a lot in books where a character is like, I shouldn't be doing this. I know this is so dumb, but I just have to. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't give, that's not a good reason. that's not a good reason just because you have to, even though you call out that it's not a good thing for you to be doing, doesn't make it a good thing for you to be doing.
You're right. I've noticed that a lot with writers. It's like they're like it's almost like they're not talking from their character, it's them. They're like, look, I know this is stupid, but we have to move the story forward.
Right.
Like, if this person was real, I'm hoping if they thought this was such a bad idea, they wouldn't do it. But I've also watched the news a lot.
That's true. That's true. In the world, people do make dumb decisions
They
just
really,
because.
but they don't think it's dumb. That's the difference.
That's true.
Absolutely different. You're right. People make stupid, but you are right to call that out in like writing in books that like the character verbally says to themselves, "Hey, this is a bad idea, but I gotta do it." You don't have to do anything. Just say you want to.
Right.
You don't need to. You genuinely don't need to go into an almost abandoned house with a possibly murderous alcoholic woman that nobody else goes to. What did you think of the mansion?
Like the mansion itself?
Yeah.
Well, once we started hearing about, so I read the book and not like all, or no, I read the book, but like I read the book and listened to the audiobook, not like all of the book and all of the audiobook. I kind of mixed it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the scene that the first time they were describing the what's it called when she heard the noises.
Yeah.
It was so,
kind of the creaking.
Yeah, it was so well done. Like the voiceover was so well done for the audiobook. It was just like they were speaking quieter and it was getting like this. And they would do this multiple times throughout the book. And I just thought it brought a good sense of atmosphere to the book as well.
See, that's what I think I want to listen to audiobooks when they have moments like that where like I can picture it so well in my head, but like actually having somebody doing the voices to you, like for you, is kind of nice because they may do it in a way you hadn't thought to do it.
But your main question was about the house, and I kind of went off the rails.
No, that's a nice observation and something like I tell you, I keep wanting to get into more audiobooks because I think it'd be nice, and that's like a good like way to kind of almost advertise it. I use it because you're not advertise it because it's like, oh, like I'm doing the spooky voices in my head, but I could actually have somebody doing the spooky voices who's like properly trained. Like, why am I not using this resource? Well, the reason I asked about the house, because she did go into a little detail about the house, but honestly, have you watched have you watched The Batman?
I still have not seen it. I need to watch it.
HBO Max. And the only reason
is it on HBO Max already?
Yeah. Go watch
I wasn't expecting it.
It's actually good. But that's a thing for another day. I'm not going. Anyway, the house that they use, the Wayne Manor in the Batman with Robert Pattinson, is so beautifully designed, and like it's creepy looking, but not like unwelcoming. But it's got that gothic texture, but again, not unwelcoming, not cold like they made all the other, Wayne houses look. A lot of stone, a lot of just dark corners. This was just a gothic looking home. I'm probably, it was not close to that, but that's the vibe I got from it. So like as I was reading this, I started picturing more of a gothic kind of manor looking.
Okay.
And when she did go into a few details, like it did fit well enough where I could keep that gothic style in there.
Right.
Like a small town in Oregon, so probably
Yeah.
have like gothic, proper gothic architecture.
Well, at least it was relatable in that sense because you're in the Pacific Northwest. So
That's true. I felt the rain every time it was mentioned in the story. I got caught in hail 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I got caught in hail trying to build a shed with my sister. It started hailing out of nowhere. The second time I was driving, it was on my birthday. So hail has not been my friend this year. That's anyway, but that's why I had asked about the house and see if like, did you picture any particular thing, or were you more focused on like the spooks that were popping up?
I was picturing, like, for whatever reason, I wasn't picturing a very creepy house. Now, have you read Mexican Gothic?
Yes.
So good. I think Mexican Gothic did a really good job at, not that this book didn't, but Mexican Gothic did a really good job at painting the house, like painting the scenery of the house and painting the atmosphere of the house.
It's
But
because Mexican. We all have one house that kind of looks all similar to each other. That's why it's so easy to describe. I'm just saying, like, we like a style.
Kind of fast forwarding to the very end. What did you think of the whole revelation with Lily and that whole like backstory of Lily haunting the house and everything?
It was I was surprised and not surprised that it ended up being like Lily. Because I actually thought it was going to be more of a whole metaphor thing, you know? Oh, it's just really the house has quieted down because now you've let go of your own demons type of deal is what I was really expecting at the end, which is why I ended up being so surprised it was actual supernatural elements or like an actual ghost story.
Right.
The revelation that it was Lily, I was like, okay, she kind of makes sense to be haunting you. Like the guilt and the tie-in was there, so I thought that was really good. I like that it wasn't one of like the guys or something haunting her, because that's kind of yeah, because like it kind of felt that when a couple times when like I was like, oh, one of the spirits, and then you find out he was actually like a horrible person, and he's still being horrible in the afterlife, and it's like people. Yeah, and like that happens, like you get that ghost who's horrible to you in this life and horrible in the after, and it was like, oh, then it kind of makes you think like maybe you did deserve to get haunted. Maybe like, yeah, no, this ghost is well deserved within its right.
Right.
That haunting you for funsies. It's doing it with purpose. What about you? What do you think? Well, you know what I mean. I'm sure all ghosts have a purpose to fulfill whatever their last wish is. I actually don't. I'm trying to think of what. Oh, ghosts are around to fulfill their last deed or unfinished deeds. It's unfinished deeds. Ghosts are around because they have unfinished deeds. That was nothing. You go ahead.
Preview. Speaking of ghosts, we're gonna do our review of the movie Ghost at some point in the next couple of weeks on the podcast. So stay tuned for that.
My favorite part in that movie will always be when Whoopi Goldberg has to give away the money. And the bank scene, she's like, I can't. And he's like, he gives it to him. I'm just like, take it away. I want to see it. Just take it. Poor Whoopi Goldberg in that film. She's the only one that can see him.
Oscar-winning performance, literally, and she did win an Oscar. But
oh, good for her. She did. That was well-deserved Oscar. Absolutely, she earned it.
Yes, absolutely. But for the ghost in the book, I thought it was fitting. I did think it was fitting. However, I wish there were more reasoning behind like why it's particularly haunting Shay. Is just because like because they mention in the beginning that there are a lot of people who have died, like crazy things have happened in the house, people have died and stuff. So where are their ghosts at? Where they at? I want to see where those ghosts are at.
Oh, Lillian? It's Lillian, right? Actually,
Lily, I think, or yeah.
Lillian. No, it's Lillian. Was it Lily or Lillian? Or are they the same person? Are they the same person? Did I do that thing where I screw up with the names again? It might be. But like, okay, yeah, no, I see what you mean. There's more justified. There's actually a show like that, and I told you to watch
Ghosts,
it. On HBO Max, where
mm-hmm.
you die and you kind of just stay where you died, but you still have unfinished business, and then you can move on eventually because not all ghosts stay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that concept is really interesting because I think it was with Forrest, our old security guard at the science center. He would talk about the science center being haunted. I'm like, that makes no sense. He's like, oh, we had the pieces of the Titanic and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but why would the ghost stay here after the exhibits left? He's like, well, and I'm like, yeah, they're emotionally attached to the items because that's where they died. The traumatic event didn't really happen in a place. It happened specifically, with this like thing. They wouldn't stay. And I'm like, and has anybody actually died at the science center? No. And then I'm like, you don't have hauntings. What you have is a bunch of people who work really late hours, overworked and tired, and see stuff sometimes. And I'm like, this place is kind of creepy, and you can hear moaning from like people, either homeless people, ordinary people, tourists, like they're all groaning because the tourists ate too much. And they're like, let's go walk by the Seattle Needle. The homeless people are just trying to sleep. So like I always was like that. But anyway, I get what you're saying. There was more people that could have haunted her probably in her life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think she was deserved to be haunted by anybody in general?
Who? Beth or
Beth. Do you think before knowing everything and just given the story about Beth, did you think she was guilty?
No, because it was too, I feel like in any of these books, in any of these thrillers, it's never the person who is being pointed at the whole time is usually not the person.
That's true. It's like
showing... Like the most obvious person is typically not the person who did it.
But that's the thing, in cold cases, it usually is.
Yeah.
It's not the stranger danger, it's the danger in your own household at times, unfortunately. I say that it is unfortunate because your house should be, your safe place.
Right.
But I think you're right. I think Lillian and Lillian are the same person. Anyway, there is a quote in here that I marked and I wanted to bring up. When Shay asked Beth if her mother had mental illness too. On like page 121. And Beth is like, what? And she's like, good, that's something I heard, that your mother may have been in a hospital when she was a teenager. Because that's the only reason you go to hospitals back in like the 50s when you were a teenager. Apparently it's because you were crazy.
Right.
But this is also when they like kind of first meet up, or they're finally like doing the first interview and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're redoing it. This is after she's lost the transcribes of the last interview. This is like redoing it. This is like what you ask her. Was your mom mentally ill too? Like, I mean, whether this woman has just invited you and is possibly a murderer, that's rude as hell.
Right. I was about to say that's rude. Like
It's so absolutely
she was
rude.
pushing it. She knew that this woman was opening up her home to her and was being a lot more generous with her time and resources than normally expected. So she's like, I can push the limit a little bit. And
Yeah,
let me
but
push it.
I guess, yeah, I could see that, but at the same time, it's like it's also right after she like loses her first interview, and it's like this is what you're coming in with to like kind of almost redo the first interview. Is like, yay, are you just mentally ill, or is it like the rest of your family? Like, that's a hell of a rude question.
Right.
Like clearly there is mental illness going on, but like still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, did you like Shay? Did you think she was a likable character?
I thought she was a relatable character. I thought because I feel like not only in recent times, but as far as I can remember, people have been interested in people have like an obsession with cold cases, an obsession with true crime. So I think she was presenting that obsession, and she presented it in a fine way. She also is very like self-deprecating, I feel like, in the sense that she talks about how but not self-deprecating in a way that's just like ragging on herself all the time. She talks about her divorce. She talks about how she's single, but she also says that she's like moderately attractive. So it's like she's towing that line between self-deprecation and like humility. So I think she's likable enough.
I always think it's weird when authors put into their books when the characters are talking about themselves and their appearance. Kind of when it has nothing to do with the story and time. Like they're throwing the description in there. And I actually I am writing this one story, and the person in the story is a writer, and it just made me think of that. Not trying to boost my own writing out there. And the character B says he doesn't like this line of books, and then she sees that like the character A is like, oh shit, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, hopefully I didn't like insult your favorite author, and she's like, well, I don't really like the author, but I like the books. And then you find out it's actually her who's written it. Somebody's like, why'd you say that? She's like, well, that's more of a self-esteem issue than anything, but like nobody needs to know those parts. But that's kind of what it reminded me of, that I'm like, it just, you put in yourself into these stories so intensely and you don't think about it, which is probably when they write that type of dialogue where they talk about the character's like appearance. So like, oh, moderately attractive, like I'm okay, when it really
Right.
has nothing to do with the story at the moment. That was like, that's something you were thinking, weren't you? That was like in a mood of you that day. You're like, it's going in, people are gonna know this.
Man. I guess, well, the last thing I wanted to kind of say or ask is, who did you most relate with? Beth or Shay?
I would like to have related to Beth more, the eccentric woman with money. However, I related to Shay because she was a receptionist at a doctor's office who during the nighttime had a blog, which currently I have started for the podcast, and then I do a podcast at nighttime. So, and I am fascinated with murder. Not in like the way people are where they do the podcasting themselves. I won't start a podcast or a blog about murders. But
you'll listen and watch.
But like if I have a coloring book of murderers, so like I'm not great at where I am, but like I'm not horrible and not invading people's private lives. So that's all I can say to that. What about you? Who, if you were a woman, which character do you think you could relate to more?
I Shay for sure. Like,
is it because you couldn't get away with murder? I'm sorry.
No, that's not the
I
reason.
love you, Jonathan.
It's the, and I'm not. I've always had a fascination for these cold cases and like serial killers and stuff like that. But I feel like I don't do as much consumption of the media as I kind of want to, because some of these stories are really interesting. I'll usually just like either if a documentary is popping on Netflix, then
Yeah.
I'll watch that. Or if I stumble across a Wikipedia article about someone who did some crazy stuff, then I'll read that. But I won't go too much further than that.
I'll
But I
do
kind of want to.
I do that with TikToks when they mention a murderer's name, and then I just delve into it, and I'm like, I know way too much now. So I get what you're saying, where it's like, if it comes up, I will like deep dive into it, but like I'm not personally being like, hey, I'm gonna go try to research this murder or this type of event today.
Right. Exactly. I don't wake up thinking about, okay, who am I going to research today? Which case am I going to consume today? I don't do that. But I definitely am interested in the whole area of murder.
I mean, it's a apologies to anybody who's ever had to deal with such situations.
Yeah, and I feel like people kind of make light of it as well sometimes too. Like,
I thankfully had never really actually experienced the passing of somebody I cared for until Snowball died. So that's another reason it had hit me so hard. So I have been very lucky in my life that nobody who I've cared about has passed, or somebody so close to me. So even so, I do not know what I could ever, however I would be if somebody around me was murdered.
right.
So I can never speak to that. That's kind of why I like would want to give people more privacy. I feel like if it was me, I definitely would want that. Like you wouldn't want reporters or people like outside your door, or that nosy teenage girl who has the million follower podcast trying to be like, but what did he do the last night he was alive? Like they're grieving, leave him be.
Right.
But so I get what you mean. But yeah, it was a relation to shade because she also has like what we have, like the normal day life where we do the
She
office
has a
work.
job. She lives in an apartment or a condo. Was it an apartment or a condo?
It was she called them both actually. I noticed that.
Okay. But she mentioned that all divorced people live there, basically.
I think when she mentioned the divorce part, it turned into apartments. When she was just talking about living in her space, it was like a condo,
Uh,
which is probably just a way to make it seem sadder, even though I live in a micro apartment. Um, I will say this about Shay. I can see why she's so willing to, when you mentioned earlier about like doing something that's bad for her. I can understand what she means like that because for a while I kept doing very stupid stuff because I was so bored in my everyday life. Because just like her, I come from I've had very past traumatic events. When you have had things like that, like your awareness levels up here, and so when nothing's going wrong, you're like bored and kind of like, well, something is happening, and then you end up doing stupid stuff. So like getting into a blog is also like a great way for her to like just event that. But I'm really hopeful that my trauma will never lead me to go hang out or have, lunch with a murderer.
mm-hmm.
I hope. No, I have you guys.
Hopefully, I have faith that that will not be
I
your
don't
destiny.
I don't have faith in me, but I have you guys, like you, Lauren, Jerome would probably encourage me to go. You, Lauren, Jasmine, definitely you three would probably be like, Alex, think about it for a second. And then if I talk to Jerome or Kaylee, they'd be like, do it. Taylor would probably say something positive about the murder. Love you, Taylor. So yeah, I get what you mean with that. And she does, that is a very relatable character. When you said that earlier, she wasn't relatable. It's not necessarily that she was likable.
Mm-hmm.
Because she did make a lot of those dumb movements, like mentioning the mental health thing. And it was just like, whew, like I don't want to be that stupid, but in a situation, you never know.
Right. Yeah, you never know until you're in that situation.
Yeah, and I
And
read
she has
like, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say, and she had a traumatic event happen to her. Um, so that definitely shaped some of her outlook.
Yeah, the events of your life will always shape your outlook. You know, whether good or bad, it's gonna change you.
Mhm.
Um,
What would you rate the book? Should we go on
I
our
think
letter rating
I
or
think so because we're doing the right now.
okay?
Uh, I would rate this book probably a B. I went into it not the twists of the stories were kind of predictable, but the actual supernatural element was not. Um, and even though the main character was not likable, you are correct. She was very, very relatable. So much so that like I worked at a physician's office, and then I was like, oh shit, I'm her. Hopefully smarter version of her, but like I'm her. So like a solid B. And like I said, the writing was very good. There was no grammatical errors. Oh, we were supposed to look up that editor.
Oh, that's right. Let's
Um,
see. Okay, it is edited by
I don't even know where to look in that.
okay, maybe the acknowledgments in the back. Let's see. By
Oh,
editor Danielle Perez.
Danielle Perez, you are a badass.
Good job. Good job.
I after reading about this one editor who freaked out on people because they called out grammatical mistakes on a book. Um, one, you guys all have a high stress job. I understand this. And I respect y'all, but the ones who actually are like really like good and dedicated, like that's whole new levels. Because you could just let an extra explanation point or question mark go, but like you don't. You
Mhm.
catch them, which you know. Um, and also I just read the dedication too. It says for my mother, who never got to read this one.
Yep.
I did not read that. Oh,
I know it was eerie. It was like, okay, this sets the tone for the book.
did she die recently?
That's what
Oh, see,
I'm.
there's another death I'm trying to now know about.
Right. Maybe
Anyway,
that'll be the next book.
a solid B. I think it's a good book, and I think it's worth reading, and I would recommend it. Um, probably won't go back to reread it, but definitely a solid book I'd recommend. What about you?
I agree. When I was thinking of my letter grade, before you said yours, I was thinking B as well. For some of the same reasons. Also the fact that I'm kind of biased towards Sundown Motel, excuse me. Um, and they have similar elements. So, like I mentioned, I was kind of comparing in a way, but like we talked about, the character of Shay and the character of Shay, the characters of Shay and Beth, and their whole dynamic was very interesting as well. It was kind of like Shay was, even though she, saw her as a murderer, she kind of admired her as well, which was an interesting dynamic. Um, she was relatable. I felt like I was put in her shoes throughout Shay's shoes, that is, throughout the book. And overall, I thought it did some. It's like the setting. I think Simone St. James did a good job at describing the setting. Sometimes, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but sometimes when I'm reading a book and they're too descriptive with the setting, sometimes if I can't like build that mental picture in my brain, I'm kind of like, okay, it kind of takes me out of it because I'm trying to focus so much on building that mental visual picture in my brain that if I can't build it, then I'm lost and I'm stuck. But if I'm kind of given, not vague, but not too descriptive aspects of a setting, then I feel like I have more freedom in my mind to build that setting myself, if that makes sense.
No, I absolutely agree, and that's what I meant when she gave enough detail for me that I was still able to force my gothic home style into that perception. But
Right.
I absolutely agree with you. I only want the, like, if you're showing me something in the room, show me like key importances, because I'm going to change it, because what, when you're reading a book, you visualize so much.
Yeah.
And if they don't give you enough or in the front, or they're like, hey, this is definitely set here, and suddenly they change and like give you something heavily descriptive, it was like, well, I had everything going, and that house doesn't really fit in what was going on, but now I got to wipe everything down.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if someone's like if they just use terms that you don't understand, like I don't know, I don't even know what to use an example. Like if someone said the 5 slat 4 ply wooden doors, like you wouldn't know what that means, like unless you were in that industry. So I appreciate when they give you the layout, but not the whole, like,
Not something you have to go and Google.
right, exactly.
Like I can say Gothic architecture and people kind of get a vibe, like churches.
Right.
But if I go and say the Tudor style, by the way, I took an architecture class, that's why I know a certain word. A Tudor style house, you're not gonna know what that means.
Right.
You're gonna think like actual Tudor. The key, or I mean, if people know that's what King Henry VIII was, you're gonna think it's not. It's not at all. It's literally just a white house with archways. That's it. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, and it can be an unpopular opinion. I mean, that's why I had problems with certain authors, because they describe too much of the scenery, and it's like, you're right, I want to visualize what I want to visualize to fit the story.
Right. Well, that is our review of the Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. Let's hold him up again. Let us know if you've read the book. Let us know what you think of it. Comment below. If you're listening to, I was going to say if you're listening to the podcast version, but no, we're not uploading.
No, we only do YouTube.
Let us know in the comments below. Give us 5 stars. This is YouTube again. YouTube, you don't do 5 stars. What am I saying?
Give us a like.
Give us a like. Subscribe to our channel. We would love to have you a part of our gang. Also, we have our podcast content as well. So please listen to our podcast. We release every Monday. Give us 5 stars on that. That would really help us. Follow us on social media at The First Ones to Die, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of the social medias, basically. You can email us, thefirstones2die@gmail.com. We would love to get your emails. And Alex, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Alex and Nobody on Instagram and on TikTok, and the podcast TikTok, where I also handle most of the videos where you see little briefs of this. And also, I recently just started a blog on WordPress, where it is Alex and Nobody. It is a good centered around me, but I talk a lot about the podcast, what we're reviewing. I show our calendars and kind of keep a general up to date, like, hey, we're filming today. Hey, if you have any suggestions, always happy to hear. So come visit me on that if you have any ideas, or you just want to chat with me, because I got nothing to do. So I'm always happy to talk with random people online. That is probably why my mom didn't like me going online when I was younger. Yeah, that right there. You
might want to think about that last sentence.
All her fears are understandable. What about you, Jonathan? Where are we looking for you? Where can they find you online?
You can find me online. At Jonathan Keys on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you please. We teased it a little bit in this episode, but we're going to be talking about Sonic, Sonic 2, number 2, on our podcast, and then we're going to be reviewing Ghost, the film with Patrick Swayze, Whoopi Goldberg,
Demi Moore.
So that's what we have coming up in the next few weeks on the podcast.
Oh, wait, before that, we also have Sonic 2, and then it will be a special episode with Jonathan and just me and just Jonathan. No, I'm still saying that not grammatically correct. As I praise the editor, my actual verbal grammar is horrible. Where we will be talking about reality shows and Big Brother, and one of our friends who was on the show last year was unfortunately kicked off of Big Brother. Voted. Is it voted? Do they vote? I'm still new.
Yes, they evict.
They evict. And so we're gonna catch up on that and talk about other reality shows because I've actually been watching a few more, and I blame Jonathan.
Yay.
And then we will be reviewing
Working.
Ghost. Yeah, it's you infiltrate people. You find that one show, and you get in there, and I respect that.
Yep. Nice.
That's for the next few weeks, and we will see you guys throughout that, right?
Yes, we'll see you. See you next time. And we're probably gonna do a May book too. So tune in for that at the end of May, early June, maybe.
I'll post up what books are up there, and if you guys have an opinion on which one you'd like us to choose, let us know.
Yes. All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.